Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Mark Brajak here, and I am in Canada right now. I just flew home a couple of days ago, and I wanted to make this video to share with you guys some of the reasons why I decided to leave Sweden and come back here to my hometown. A few people have been asking, and it's been a popular question, so I just want to go ahead and address it. One of the reasons why I decided to leave is because I wasn't getting any work. And I also don't have a work contract. So working from home is not an option. So not only can I not go into work, into a physical workplace, but I don't actually have the option to work from home because I don't have a job that I can do from home. I was a substitute teacher, and because there were so few kids going into the primary schools, and for those of you who don't know, the primary schools in Sweden, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, are still open. And also on top of that, I didn't want to work. So if I had the option to come in, I wouldn't want to. Another reason why I decided to leave is because Sweden wasn't going into lockdown, so I didn't exactly feel safe being there. I think it was just better if I just come home. It seems like the Canadian government is handling things a lot better, in my opinion, here in Canada, as opposed to how the government is handling things over there in Sweden. As I mentioned in my previous video, everything in Sweden is still open. Almost everything. A lot of people do have the opportunity to work from home. Gothenburg, which is the city that I was living in, is the Volvo capital of the world. And I believe what I heard was that their production line is completely shut down and that all of their production workers are at home, and they're getting paid 60% just to be at home. And I don't know how long that's going to last for, but that's just what I heard. I haven't actually confirmed that. But for the most part, like, everything is pretty much open. Colleges and universities are closed, as well as high schools. Primary schools are still open, and I'm not sure if they're open only for the kids whose parents are essential service workers. I heard that that was going to be a thing, but I don't know if that's something that's actually been enforced. But nonetheless, the primary schools are still, in fact, open in Sweden. But like I said, as a substitute teacher in a primary school, I wasn't getting any work because nobody was really calling in sick, and there just wasn't like any work for me. So I think I had gone about 2 weeks without working a single shift at the primary school. And I had a lot of time to pray and to reflect and to really think about things and how I want to move forward. And I got some stuff done around the house, some stuff in my personal life as well. I got to finish some things, but I also started to think a lot about, what should I do next? And over time, these reasons that I'm sharing in this video started to get revealed to me. And I was looking for a plane ticket, a direct plane ticket, plane ticket. I was hoping to fly from either Gothenburg to Toronto or from Copenhagen to Toronto. And for the longest time, because Denmark was one of the first, I think it was the first Scandinavian country to go under complete lockdown. And anybody that was not Danish, not a Danish resident, not a Danish citizen, was actually not allowed to enter into the country. But then a few days before the end of March, the Danish government had somewhat lifted or relaxed this ban a little bit. And I found out from the Swedish embassy that I, as a Canadian citizen, was in fact allowed to go to Denmark, given the fact, or given, like, assuming, or if I had proof that I had a plane ticket to go, just to indicate to the authorities or whoever's at the border or whatever, that I was going to the airport just to fly out of the country. Because a lot of people who like either live or visit Gothenburg or whatever, a popular choice destination to fly to would be Copenhagen, because Malmo is only like half an hour away by the bus. It's really, really close, just on the other side of the bridge that connects Denmark and Sweden, Copenhagen and Malmo. But to get to Gothenburg from Copenhagen is only a 4-hour bus ride. So that is one of the reasons why I decided I was thinking about, or I was hoping to fly out of Copenhagen. But again, the reason why I didn't is because the route that Scandinavian Airlines has from Copenhagen to Toronto was not operating, and there was no telling as to when this ban or this suspension of this flight or these flights from Scandinavian Airlines was going to be lifted. I was trying to find news about Scandinavian Airlines, and all I could find was that that most of their flights had been suspended. And like I said, there was no telling when this suspension was going to be lifted. On top of that, the Canadian government had said that there's only going to be 22 flights from Europe to Canada, and there was no telling as to when the next flights were going to be. I also received an email from the Canadian Embassy in Sweden saying that the Canadian government had absolutely no plans to fly people from or repatriate Canadians from Sweden directly to Canada, meaning that you'd have to take one of these 22 flights. And they were in 4 different countries, in the Netherlands, Amsterdam, one in the UK, in London, and the other 2 were in Germany and France. I believe it was Paris and Berlin, but I'm not 100% sure. And they would be direct flights to Canada. So I had to find a way to get to Amsterdam. And the way that I did it was I went about I took a flight from Gothenburg to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I know I said in my previous videos that I wasn't feeling comfortable to take that direct flight. But then as I thought about it, sorry, not direct flight, to take the connecting flight from Gothenburg to Amsterdam, and then from Amsterdam onwards. In other words, I wanted to have a direct flight. But as I thought about it some more, I realized that it's probably safer for me to fly now as opposed to when after this travel ban gets lifted on pretty much the whole world, because there's probably not going to be a lot of people at the airport. And I had some people that were warning me and saying it's probably not so safe to travel. But like I said, I definitely felt I had this change of heart, I guess you could say, where I felt like it was, in fact, a lot safer for me to travel now as opposed to later. And not only that, there was no there's no telling when these restrictions are going to be lifted. So if it's going to be in like a year from now, like I think I'd rather just come home now, because my original plan was to come home in the middle of August. And I think it's very, very possible. I hope not. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong about this, but it's very, very possible that this situation that we all find ourselves in could be a lot longer than we think. And in order to go from one country to another, from one country to your home country, it could be a lot more complicated than we think once all of this kind of gets stabilized and returns to somewhat back to normal. Which, on that note, I think there's no going back to the way that things used to be. I think things will be a lot different on the other side of this. And if you want to have a conversation about that, you can message me and we can certainly talk about that. But that's not the purpose of this video. The other thing was the plane ticket. The price of the plane ticket for me to come home felt just right. I paid about 580 Canadian dollars to go from Gothenburg to Amsterdam to Toronto, and that included checked bag. So that was actually a much better price than I thought I was going to be paying. I feel really bad for the people, the Canadians, that are trying to get repatriated back to Canada, and that they're in India right now. Because what I heard was that the price for a plane ticket is $2,900. I thought it was Canadian dollars, but apparently it's 2,900 US dollars. It's like about 3,300 Canadian dollars to go from India to Canada, which is absolutely absurd. I hope that they figure that out and there comes to some kind of an agreement, because I was very happy with the amount that I paid, and I don't think anybody should pay that much money to, for a plane ticket. That's just crazy. So please pray for those Canadians that are in India right now and trying to get home to their loved ones. Let's see, what else I wrote down here was I had a lot of confirmation from friends and family, both in Sweden and in Canada, as to what they think that I should do. Some people from my church, some people from just my friends that were there. And yeah, I talked to a lot of people either the day before or the day of that I purchased my ticket, and everybody was so supportive. Everybody was very understanding. There were definitely some people that were sad to let me go. And I was definitely sad to leave, because I just felt like things were just starting to roll for me in Sweden. I was starting to establish myself, and I know I wasn't planning on staying there for the long term, but it was just such an amazing experience to be able to just go abroad without any plan. I didn't have a personnummer. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live. And the only thing that I knew that I was going to when I got to Gothenburg was a church. And I'll put a link in the description box to the church if you want to go and check it out. It's a really, really good church, really solid biblical church, loving people. If that is something that you're interested in, you can definitely check that out. But, God provided all of those things. He provided me a job. In fact, I got hired at 4 different places, three schools, all as a substitute teacher. I got a job at a Domino's Pizza, and I had another interview in the works before I decided to pull the plug and to come home. So yeah, I got a lot of confirmation from friends and family, both in Canada and in Sweden. They were very supportive of me to come home, and that's what kind of pushed me over the edge a little bit. That, and also just knowing that I think that it's going to be a lot safer for me to travel in this season as opposed to when things kind of like go back to normal. But when I really thought about that, about like how much safer I think that it's going to be now as opposed to later, that also was a big, big factor for me in deciding to come home. Just wasn't something I was willing to risk. So hopefully, what I'm hoping for, and I already spoke with my travel insurance company, they can't give me a clear answer. Those of you who have ever dealt with travel insurance companies before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But what they said was they can't give me a straight answer, but they think that they should be able to reimburse me for my trip to come home, because it would fall under the classification or the category of, it's called trip interruption. That's what it's called. So I could justify it as my trip got interrupted because of the pandemic, and that they should be able to reimburse me. So hopefully, I'm not expecting anything, but hopefully they will be able to do that, because I paid for 1 year of worldwide insurance, and I was gone I left Canada at the end of September. So I think what is that now? Like, that's about 6 months or something. 6 or 7 months. September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Yeah. So about 6 months I've been gone away from home, and I paid for a whole year. So the amount that I actually paid for my travel insurance is a lot more than what I paid for my plane ticket. So hopefully, we'll see. Hopefully I'll get my money back. And then I think the last thing, and probably the most important reason why I decided to leave Sweden and come back home to Canada, is because I just wanted to be there for my parents. I wanted to be there for my family. I know I'm in self-isolation right now. I have to be quarantined. I have to be confined for 2 weeks, for 14 days, before I can get a few of my rights back. Can't actually go for a walk, can't go to the park, can't go visit anybody. No one can visit me. I can pretty much go as far as my backyard. But for the most part, I've just been staying in this basement and just eating my mom's cooking. that she's been sending down here so graciously. But after this 2 week period, I think I just want to be there for my family in case that they ever needed anything. So yeah, I just wanted to make this video to share with you guys some of the reasons why I decided to leave. Maybe you're somebody who's in Sweden right now, you're a Canadian, and you're not sure whether or not you want to go back. I don't know how many flights are left out of Europe, but I hope that if coming home for you is an option, is something that you're thinking about, that you're not sure about doing, then I hope that I've given you something to think about. Because it's not easy to make decisions like this, and we need to know, we should have all the facts in place before we make any kind of drastic decisions like this. So my options were either I could stay in Sweden, I could just sit at home for a whole nother month, and not work, not do anything, and just paying my rent, paying for my groceries, expenses galore. And I believe I mentioned in this video, I also didn't want to work. So even if I got called in to work, like I didn't feel comfortable going there. I was kind of hoping and praying that I wouldn't get called in because I just wanted to stay safe. Also because I was living with somebody at the time. And so he doesn't know where I'm going whenever I leave the house. And I don't know where he's going whenever he leaves the house. So we're both trying to, keep our distance and be safe, and knowing that Sweden is not under lockdown. You can pretty much do whatever you want. You just never know how things are going to be. I really think, this is just my personal opinion, like I get what the Swedish government is doing. I understand their reasoning for doing what they're doing, meaning like that they're just letting a lot of things still be open, and that you can kind of do whatever you want, and that things are that they don't want to destroy the economy by shutting everything down. And I know that they see things a lot differently than we do as citizens, as people, residents, people that just live there. I wasn't a citizen, so I need to clarify that. I get it. So I understand their thinking, but their strategy has never been proven before. And on top of that, they weren't updating the numbers of the coronavirus cases on a regular basis. And that was also a concern for me. So these are some of the reasons I just felt safer at home. And these are some of the reasons why I decided to come back. So I hope that answers some of you guys' questions, and I hope that's given you something to think about. There are some Canadians that are on a, particularly there was this one girl that I was talking to that's on a working holiday visa over there, and she has the opportunity to work from home. And after talking with her 2 or 3 times, we ended, our last conversation ended up being, I'm going back to Canada, and she's staying where she's staying in Stockholm. We both said our reasons for why we're choosing what we're doing. And for her situation, because she was able to work from home, and among other things, I could totally understand where she's coming from. So I don't think like going home or staying is necessarily, staying in Sweden is necessarily a bad thing. But I think that whatever you decide to do, you should try to justify with certain things. So making this video, and hopefully, like I said, I think I've said this 3 or 4 times already, but I hope I'm giving you guys something to think about, and that you get encouraged, and you get the help that you need, or the answers that you need to make a decision that you think is best for you. So yeah, don't know what else to say, but thank you so much for your prayers. Thank you for watching this video this far. I really appreciate it. And if there's anything that you want me to talk about, maybe in a future video, I think this is going to be it in terms of this series. But if there's anything in particular you want me to talk about, please leave a comment below, and I'll consider making a video and addressing those things in the future. So God bless, take care, have an amazing day. Ciao.